count to three. 1, 2, 3.
Isn't it a beautiful fall day to be here in this beautiful building? It's amazing how, like she said, overnight things can change. Today, I would like to acquaint you with Robert and Sylvia Bailey and their love for Fort Scott and Fort Scott Community College. Their love for the college was not simply talk. It was action. So often in this world, we talk. They didn't talk. They moved. As the old 60s saying was, they were movers and shakers. They wanted something done, they did it. And luckily, I guess it's not luck, Fort Scott Community College in Fort Scott was their chosen place to move and shake. Often when we visited with them, and probably some of their friends in here will probably say, yeah, this happened to me too. My husband Roger, daughter Taylor, and I would have the privilege to be with them for a visit. And I guess from here on, I'll probably be calling them Uncle Bob and Aunt Sylvia, because that's what they were to me. And I figure if the King of England can call the Queen of England Mummy, I can call Uncle Bob and Aunt Sylvia Uncle Bob and Aunt Sylvia. So I will probably slip and call them that, but that's what they were to me. When we would visit with them, our conversations would often turn to FSCC. And then the inevitable pop quiz would come up. He would never ever let any of our conversations go without a pop quiz about FSCC. He would ask questions such as, oh, I hear the rodeo team's doing real well this year. Do you have any of those students in your class? What are they like? Okay, that was an easy one. Hey, I just saw on the website your mission statement. How do you apply that in your class? Getting a little tougher. Okay. In 5 years, where do you see FSCC going? Getting even more tough. And then he would end up with a zinger of some type. What's the strongest program at FSCC? And I might answer, and he would say, why do you think that? And look you right straight in the eyes. Because he wanted to know. Because he was concerned and loved this institution. He knew all the answers, basically, but he just wanted to know what somebody else thought. They did their research. He and Aunt Sylvia knew this school and this town inside and out at all times of their lives. Uncle Bob knew how to give a pop quiz due to his teaching. He taught in the Army and also at Franklin University in Ohio. He was proud of his time as an instructor, but I actually got to see a moment that he really enjoyed, I think possibly the most. That was when he was an instructor for Fort Scott Community College. Probably most of you did not know that, but he was, albeit one day, 2 classes, but he was an instructor that day. I was working with the Gordon Park celebration and was needed to go to the area grade schools. So Uncle Bob and Aunt Sylvia were visiting, and I mentioned that's what I was going to be doing the next day, and we could meet for lunch. What does he say? Oh, what are your classes going to do? You never got by easily with Uncle Bob. And Aunt Sylvia goes, none of your business. But anyway, he says, no, I really want to know. What do you do when you're not there? And again, that sounds like him. I really want to know. And I said, well, they will be doing blackboard work on the computer and probably sleeping in and being thankful for having that day. Right, students? Am I telling the truth? I am, aren't I? Yes. Come on, answer me. I'm an old teacher. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Anyway, he taught the class. He taught the class. And I went back after he did, the next class session. And so I thought, I'm going to bite the bullet. I said, how'd you like your guest instructor? Oh my gosh, hands shot up. I mean, just shot. And I said, oh, okay. I said, what did you like so much? And I called on this one and it says, I now know how to apply for a job. Okay. Another one, I need to start practicing better study habits and be more disciplined, be on time, and actually be in class. Because he says if you can't come to class, or if you can't come to work, or you don't come to work, you won't keep your job. Good advice, very good advice. And one of them said, my career starts now. It's not that far away. I need to plan. He was a hit. I turned around to walk back up to my module, and as I did, I thought, how do you follow that? But I also had to kind of blink back a tear. I was so proud. So proud that he'd had a good time and those students knew to respect that they were actually in a classroom with someone that knew what they were doing and was there because they cared. He was wonderful. He was also a board of trustee at Franklin University. He was way ahead of his time. He proposed for Fort Scott Community College a 2+2 program in business administration in 1992. Now, for those of you that don't know what a 2+2 program is, 2 years at a community college or a technical college and 2 years at a university. He proposed it to the board. It got shot down because in the state of Kansas, if you do a 2+2 program, it has to be a Kansas college or university that finishes the last 2 years. So he was disappointed. We were all disappointed. But that disappointment would be faded now if he could only know that within our nursing program, we do have the 2+2 program, thanks to the Kansas Academy module. Nurses can now receive a bachelor's degree while they're attending at Fort Scott Community College. So he would be very proud of that. Aunt Sylvia is more proud of that because she's a graduate of Mercy School Nursing, which later became FSCC School of Nursing, and she enjoyed a long, rewarding career in nursing. So they were way ahead of their time, and they always were thinking about Fort Scott Community College. As I said before, our conversations always turned to FSCC. One of our final discussions that we had was after a pleasant dinner. We're sitting around the living room, and Uncle Bob goes, hey, I want to ask you something. Sylvia and I have been thinking about something. He says, we want to make one final donation to Fort Scott Community College. And we said, okay. Now here comes a zinger. Where do you think we ought to make it? What needs it the most? All right, really? Really? You think we know? You've already made up your mind, but you're just wanting us to reinforce you. He already did his research. He already knew. But he just wanted validated from the boots on the ground, the people that were here. So, but he had to play with us first and give the pop quiz. So I looked over at Aunt Sylvia and I said, oh, nursing department always needs help. She looks at me and says, nope. Okay. I thought, what do you have wrong with the nursing department? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But it only was a few students each year. Not big enough for them. So then Roger or Taylor 1 looked up and said, well, that means scholarships are out. Yeah, only a few students benefit. So we're sitting there and there's silence. We knew we had to come up with something. So I remembered we'd had a meeting and we talked about how we wanted to make the admissions a one-stop shop. That it was friendly when they walked in the door instead of seeing bricked up walls. We also had talked about the fact that the library, this used to be the library here, was useless space. That we had tried so many ways to make it work. And how Trio needed a little bit of space and a little bit of help too. And so I thought, I'm gonna throw that out there, just because I don't know what else to say. So I threw it out there. And he says, that's precisely what we've been thinking, something like that. End of discussion. I guess that this wasn't a short answer question, pop quiz. This was gonna be an essay. And I guess I passed the essay. I don't know, but it was the end of it. And then a few weeks later, he told us that was what he was going to do. Now, I know good and well, he knew what he was going to do before he ever asked that question. He and Aunt Sylvia talked it through. They were a team. They knew. They'd done their research. And what great research they had done. So as I close, Robert and Sylvia Bailey loved Fort Scott and FSCC. They wanted to help with the future of both. And they thought that helping FSCC was it. They were a team that did not sit around and talk. They were a team that took action. By taking action, we are standing here today in this renovated facility that will benefit thousands of students in the future. Thank you.
I'm acquainted with Bob and Sylvia on several levels, but I want to give just a real quick history. Bob and Sylvia, when you think about it, came from almost nothing. But they took advantage of the opportunities that came their way and became quite successful as a team. Those are the kinds of lives that we should all admire, and I do admire them very much. Bob started at Western Insurance many years ago, and then decided to leave the company, and the management team at Western was disappointed when Bob left, and this was early in his career. They were disappointed because they had future plans for Bob with Western Insurance. They had a place for him already selected. But I guess that just goes to show that some people's talent is evident early on in their career. My wife and I, my wife Shelley and I went to visit Bob and Sylvia several years ago, and we were sitting in a room talking, and Bob said, would you like, maybe Sylvia would play piano for us. And Sylvia left and went to another room, and we heard piano music, and it was beautiful piano music. It was like a concert pianist was playing. It was incredible. And so Bob motioned for us to get up, and we walked into the other room, and we walked up to Sylvia. She was sitting behind the piano. The keys were moving, but her fingers weren't on. And they got the biggest kick out of having fooled us in that way. And I always took that to mean that they had a real fun streak about them, which I always appreciated. At one point, Bob told me that he had a dream, an actual dream, that he was back in Fort Scott running Western Insurance, and it was doing so well that they had to expand, and they were building multi-level parking garages downtown to handle the places for all the cars of the employees that were working for the company. You can interpret that dream any way you want to, but obviously fond memories of Western, but he also still dreamed about being in Fort Scott and doing something positive. But he's done that in another way, he and Sylvia, by making this incredible donation, which we are very lucky to receive, because they could have donated that money anywhere in the country, and any school would have been tickled to receive it. I just hope that we're more tickled than any other school would want to be. But I also think in Bob and Sylvia's mind, they also knew that this school would maximize that money. And Bob, being a good businessman, he wouldn't make an investment that didn't have a good payoff. And he knew that the people here would take that money and use it in the best way possible, the most efficient way possible, to benefit the most people. And I just want to thank the entire Bailey family for that gift. That is incredible. It seems right that the Bailey name is now prominently displayed on this building outside. And I'd like to thank you.
Very happy to be here, and I wish Dad were here. Dad had a gift to speak, and those in the room that have heard him, and I don't. Some things transfer that others don't, but you would enjoy him. I can tell you that. But I just wanted to say, on behalf of my mother, Sylvia Bailey, my sisters, Nancy and Janet, our families, the entire Bailey family, just thank you so much for the invite. Thank you for having us, for what a wonderful occasion, today to celebrate. And I can tell you, Dad was extremely honored and humbled to have his and Mom's name associated with the college and with this facility, the beautiful facility. He's very proud of where he came from, and very proud that his education started right here at Fort Scott Community College. It's also where Mom and Dad met. So to tell a story that Dad told last year. So keep in mind, this is a story from an 87-year-old, 70 years after the fact. So, but with that as the basis. So it was 1951, and Dad was attending college here. My mom was attending the Mercy School of Nursing. The nursing school students had some of their classes here at the college. And so Dad would call this his most important college class. Now, the funny part is, last year when he told the story, he couldn't remember the subject of the class. So it's his most important college class, he can't remember the subject, so it's interesting. He did remember the teacher's name, and he thought it was some type of a science, but he wasn't sure. So, but you see, the nursing students were in the room before his class started. So Dad would situate himself outside the room early, right in front, so that he could watch the nursing students leave the room. And so he had his eye on this one particular girl, Sylvia Stutz at the time. And of course, she didn't give him the time of the day for months, until months later. So he was just hoping for a hi, a smile, anything, and this took several months for this to finally happen, but it did. And they finally started dating, and I guess, you know, so lucky for the Bailey family, for all of us, that he did have his priorities in order, and met and married Sylvia. So I know Dad valued education very much. He greatly appreciated the college and the ability for students to get started. He so appreciated anyone that worked their way through college, worked their way through school to get their degree. That was something that meant so much to him. And I just wanted to thank you again. Best wishes for all future success. And as Dad would say, God bless each and every one of you. So, thank you.